Okay, well, welcome guys to Treehouse Meeting number 14. So I just did opened a poll a little while ago. I'll just share my screen quickly. So can you guys all see that poll there? Yep. So I'm not sure. So 11 people voted. Just wanted to quickly sort of get the feel on where people were at with this whole coronavirus thing. So I won't talk about it too much because I'm sure you guys have all heard enough about it. But yeah, so it just looks like for most of us, as sort of expected, it's usually sort of business as usual, but some people feeling the negative impact, which is a shame. And I think as the longer it goes on, we're probably going to feel that from our customers filtering through if they're being affected. And we're on the fence if about whether it's going to get worse or slowly improve. So let's hope it improves. All right, so I just wanted to get the feel on where people are at. If anyone wants to talk about their situation or has a question or needs help, feel free to speak up. But I'll leave it there. Barry says he's super busy, so that's good. Yeah, it's kind of like a lot of people are getting work out of it because of it, and people needing to jump on new technologies and things like that. So that's good. So I'll just start by talking about some documentation updates. So yeah, I'm really getting started on the e-commerce documentation now. So everyone that was waiting for e-commerce docs, that's going to be rolling out. It is a big job, so it might take a little while, but I've started on that. So if you go to the docs, you'll see any little green dots indicate the new or updated pages. So mostly just trying to get things that are on there updated. So particularly with this order object, a lot of information there on what sort of information you can pull out, but there'll be a lot more coming very soon. And of course, the Treepl team have been working hard on the performance updates. So the documentation side is finally running nice and snappy. So if I go to, say, probably the biggest page on here, migration guide. So there's just a few little hiccups with this page, particularly just because of how it's done, but everything else seems to be working really well. So this page still loaded in about, you can see here, just under 10 seconds, which is really bad, but there's a lot going on here. So if you go to just a regular page, you can see that loaded in 1.5 seconds. And I think like a lot of the server-side processing from like Treepl's end is happening sort of around here in this TCP request, which is still a little higher than what I've noticed most sites kind of giving out. So if they can continue to bring this number down, I think we'll be in really good shape, seeing a lot faster processing when you've got a lot of modules and liquid going on. So yeah, hopefully we see that number come down further. But I'm pretty happy with how fast the docs are going now. So that's going to be a relief for a lot of people, I think. Just quickly check the chat. All right, so that's about it for the docs. But yeah, there'll be a lot more coming to the docs. I'm really doubling down to try and bring all that e-commerce documentation from the last 2 releases into the docs. Okay, so we have a presentation today from Andy. Hopefully, is Andy in the house today? I can't see his name.
Yep, I'm here.
Oh, yeah,
I am here.
cool. All right, are you ready to get on to that now?
Sure, yep.
Okay, so Andy from On.Works is going to talk about using JotForms to extend the functionality of like forms, but particularly I think around event subscriptions. So I'll stop sharing and hopefully you can take over the screen, Andy, when you're ready.
Yep, no worries. Hey everyone. So So yeah, we've been working with JotForm on and off, on occasion since I don't know, probably 10 years or so. We used it in BC, not infrequently, mainly because of the limited ability to do things externally. Really, we found JotForm was a really good solution in a lot of use cases, and we're finding the same thing again now. But I'll show you this example. So I'll share my screen here. Okay, where are we? So we have this site that, here we go. So this is they're an accounting firm, and they run, they do a lot in the sort of property investment market, and they have seminars and so forth that they run regularly. And one of them is a free event, the other one's a paid event. And they have some very specific needs. But the one thing they found with BC that was particularly good was the ability to do the follow-up email and additional emails as a cluster as they needed to with these events. So they'd have an email that would go out, obviously, first of all, as an autoresponder, but then there'd be another email would go out automatically a couple of days before the event, and then another one the day after the event. So this was all set up, automatically in BC, being capability that existed. With Treepl, we've got the limitation that it's only the autoresponder. That's all we can do in terms of setting it up. So we thought, how are we going to tackle this? So these are the events, and we've got, so this is the free seminar and a paid seminar. And what we've done to resolve this is in the event module, we've created some custom fields. Specifically, so we've got the sort of standard fields here set up for the event, and then we've got a custom property for the reminder email date and the content, and the follow-up email date and the content. So the good thing here is the client can do this completely out of Treepl. They don't actually have to leave Treepl to set this all up. Everything that happens externally is just in the background. They don't even need to worry about it. So that's quite ideal. And if we look here, so here is an event. This is the detail page for the event, and we've got a form. And the way this works is we've set up a form at JotForm, which I'll show you in a moment. But we've got that form sitting in the background of this page. Now I've exposed it here so we can see it. So this is the form at JotForm, and this is just a screenshot here of the Treepl admin. So these are the what's been populated in the admin, and this is what correspondingly populates onto the hidden form. So we've got the event name and the dates for the event, the reminder date and the follow-up date, and the content for those two emails to go out. With the name and email, that's just being populated immediately when it's filled out at the top. So the hidden form gets populated by the whatever's input into the visible form, and then that gets submitted. So when we initially set this up, doing this process, we set this up so as that it would send automatically on sending the main form. However, we've done a change to that, which I'll show you in a second, and I'll show you why. But let's look at JotForm. This is JotForm. Now, I don't know if anyone's used this before. It's very simple to use. It's been around a fair while. But when you create a form at JotForm, let's go into form here. Just go back into the form builder. So if we look at form, so let's take our email form, and I'm just going to move this out of the way. So into a form. Okay, so we can take any number of elements into the form. That's all good. It's all fairly obvious. There's also these widgets. We're not using any widgets on this particular form, but they are pretty handy in terms of various things you can do. There's quite a lot of capability built into this. So we've put the various fields onto the form. Here you can see that reminder email, follow-up email. And then we've got the settings for the form, and this is where it all takes place, including emails. So we've got the notification when somebody makes a booking, that goes back to the administrator, and we've got these additional emails. So what we've got here is the event name and the date and the reminder email content that comes in here. So this automatically populates, and it then is sent out by JotForm on the date specified in the form. So that works out pretty well. There's the recipient list that's going to the email address that's been submitted, and that's all we need to do. So if we look at the form itself, how we've set that up is, actually I'll go back one. With the output of this form, there is, under the publishing option, there is various options to embed it. The standard process is just a piece of JavaScript which puts the form into wherever you're wanting to use it, but obviously we need to populate that form. So there is an option of source code. Now this is pretty good. It's quite a lot of code, but it's, once you read through it, it's not too difficult. So we can copy that source code and then put that into the page on Treepl. So that's how we've done this, and that works pretty well. So if we look here, here's our main form, which we've got here. We've got additional attendees on this form as well. And then what we've done, so this is what we originally did, is this is on the layout for the event. So in the event layout, we have the additional form. This is the Jot form you can see here. So up here we've got, where are we? So here we go. So this is the standard form or standard layout for the event module. We've got the event date there. We've got a map. Here's the forms themselves, the Treepl forms coming in, payment form and for the free event form. And then we've got some jQuery that's pulling in the additional attendees that I can show you in a second. There's a few different sending options we came up with in terms of setting it with a timeout or doing it concurrently or consecutively, a few tests. And here's the Jot form itself. Now, what this required for the date was a little bit complex because it required a date picker. So we actually had to populate every element, the day, the month, the year, and also the full date value. But that wasn't too bad once it's all in place. So here we've got the name coming into the form, the event date, that was the day, the month, the year. Then we've got the full date, and then we've got the content, or reminder email, date, and content. So, it was just a matter of really pulling apart the form and populating it. The one limitation, well, it's not really a limitation, it's just something to be aware of. The one thing that we had to work around is that this uses what's it called? Prototype as a JavaScript library. So that is a conflict with jQuery. So we had to do the jQuery no conflict in terms of the setup for this so that we could use the form with prototype. So long as you've got jQuery no conflict enabled, then it works just fine. So here's our form, and then it goes out at the same time. So let me show you here. What we've done, this is the paid event. Let me just show you. Sorry, bear with me a second here. Right. So what we decided to do after that, once we tested all this and got this working, we decided we would make a bit of a change to it, and that what we've now done is we are doing it from the success page. So rather than sending the form at the time of sending the Treepl form, we're actually pulling that that information from the from the booking, and then once we get to the success page, we're then sending that to JotForms. So that means we're not running a risk of something where somebody tries to book an event and the payment fails, and they might still go through and get that booked. So we wanted to avoid that, so that's how we've achieved it. So what we've got here is our information coming into the event itself. If anybody wants this code, I'm happy to share it. They just need to drop me an email. So here we go. So this is the event form and the free event form, pulling in the starter, and then over here we've got so this is a snippet. So what we've done is we've now taken all of the stuff from JotForm and put it into a snippet, and then we're pulling that snippet into the success page. I'll show you that. So that was basically the same as I showed you before with this form, add a job form, which we've populated. And then here we've got the success page, the thank you page. So we're doing a number of things with this thank you page. We've got download links and a few other things we run out of here. So that includes obviously this particular form where we've got if it's a event booking, then this information has been collected, is then being sent out to JotForm. And I will run through a use case for you. I'll show you an example of that. So if we look at, let me go back over here. Let's go with, we'll go with this one. Let's refresh that. So this is a paid event. The site's not yet live. It's going live in the next few days. So if we populate that, let me just give this a unique value, and so in this one we've got a number of people, and this brings in the additional attendees as well. We've got more people, and it changes the price accordingly. Just do it on one person here. Let's put in a credit card. Okay, and we'll book that. Processing, obviously it's going through Stripe, and it's done. There's our thank you page. So upon hitting this page, this will now be send that data off to JotForm. So if we have a look at that, here's JotForm, here's our form. If we go to the inbox for the form, cool. So here's our latest one that's just come in right now, and you can see that what we've got here is all the various corresponding dates. That particular event didn't have anything other than just reminder email content, follow-up email content in the in those fields. So that's why we're only seeing that. But here's one I did a short time ago with the other form, which has got all the content in here for the emails. So as I say, that queues up based on these dates and sends out that email to those people. So really the greatest advantage here is nothing needs to be done other than populating the event in Treepl. And it is automated. So even though these are different events on different dates, we just need the one form. The single jot form allows us to send out everything moving forward into the future without actually having to touch it. So it's an ideal scenario. So this is a particular solution that works pretty well, I've got to say. There's other things we're using this for. In addition to the events, we've also got another form that we've built, which is just basically collecting email addresses and names, which we're pulling into a list. This particular client has a MySQL database for their mail list. So when anyone submits a form, that information is going through JotForm and then getting written into a MySQL database externally. So again, that's another use case which works very, very well. So there are other things, and this is where we've used it a lot in the past, is that JotForm works very well with Zapier. Is everyone familiar with Zapier? Has anyone used Zapier? Cool. So I mean, Zapier is a great solution for all sorts of things. If you can get your data to Zapier, you know, you can do anything with it, absolutely anything. So in the limited time I have here today, I thought I'd make an argument for Zapier. So with Zapier, anyone that's used it, I think, would agree that its capability is really fantastic. If there's one thing that frustrated me with BC, and we have the same issue at the moment with Treepl, is the inability to take your data externally and do something with it. And I think this is where the likes of Shopify has really, Shopify came into the market when BC was really it was looking like BC was going to be the world leader in this whole space of being a cloud-based CMS solution. But where Shopify, and I've lost quite a number of clients to Shopify over the years, what Shopify have done well is their ability to work in with any other cloud-based SaaS platform. That's really been their strength. And I'd love to see that happening with Treepl. So it's a conversation I had recently with Alex, talking to him about that, and said, look, what's the story with getting Zapier integrated? Because if we can get Zapier, then we can get everything. There's anything you can do once you've got onto Zapier. I mean, let's have a look here. If we look at the different options of what's available, I think there's something like 2,500 different platforms that we can integrate with. So the opportunity is just massive, absolutely massive. I mean, you can obviously go here anytime and have a look through yourself, but I'm aware that there is a backlog item for Zapier. I'll just find the URL. I think I might have just closed it. Yep. So in the public backlog, there is it's only got 2 votes at the moment. There is a Zapier integration item in there. So I would encourage everyone, if you can, and this is when I spoke with Alex, he said, look, see if you can get others to support this, because we can do it. It's not that difficult to do. We just need to see that there is support for it. So I'd like to just take a second to encourage everybody to vote on this, because if we can get this, really the world is your oyster in terms of what you can deliver for your clients. And I'm frustrated regularly confronting the same problem where people say we want to do this with our inventory system, or we want to be able to do something with notifications or with another platform or what have you. And at the moment, it's not something we can really deliver. So that can often be the problem in terms of not getting a project. So if we can say, yep, sure, we can integrate with your inventory system by notifying a sale through Zapier, then life's good. We can take on those clients. So if we can all vote for this, we can probably see it coming into existence. So look, as I say, that's what we've done, and it's not a simple, straightforward solution, but it works. It's a little bit of work, but it's worth the effort. So if anybody wants to get that code, I'm happy to share it. I have a really open policy with sharing code. As far as I'm concerned, the more code that can be shared, amongst partners, the better. If somebody's got something that works, that's great. It's going to save me a bunch of hours to try and figure something out. For that very reason, I'm more than happy to share every bit of code if anybody wants to use it. So it works pretty well. There we go. I'll hand it back to you, Adam.
Cool. Thanks very much for that, Andy.
No worries.
Yeah, it's really good. So obviously there's a lot more functionality with JotForms. Like, I haven't looked into it for quite a while. I only used it way back just to create forms, but so you can set all those reminders and follow-ups and things like that.
Yep.
Yeah. And is that like do you need a paid account for most of those features?
No, you can do it all with a free account. Basically, when you get up to a certain amount of use, you have to start paying for it. So that's really good. I mean, it's with this particular client, the use is high, so yep, it's on a paid account. But look, for a lot of clients, you'd never even need to go to a paid option.
Okay, so it's based on usage, is it not?
It is, yep. And the free subscription provides quite a lot. I think it's 200 form submissions a month or something like that.
Okay, cool. And do you just you base that off your account, or do you set up the client with an account?
I'll set up a client account in this case, but there has been other cases where we just set it up on our own.
Yeah.
But yeah, generally, if it's going to be something with a lot of use in it, then yeah, set up a client account makes sense.
Yeah. But from what I could tell, it doesn't look like the client would really need to get in there and touch much. Like you just set it up.
No, the client doesn't have to do anything in it. In fact, they won't even touch it. I mean, they could, but there'd be no real point. Although, let me just show you one thing though that is relevant where it is good for a client. I'll just share screen again. So one thing that is good in here is if we go back to the form, there's an option here where we can view all the submissions in a list, and here it is. So you can see all of the form submissions in a single list. We've got, we can see the dates that their reminders and follow-ups are going to go out, who they're going to, what the contents are. It's a really good way to manage it in that regard. So yeah, it's there is some advantages in the client going into JotForm if they want to do that, but because of the way we've set this up, they don't actually need to, because as I showed before, here we go, they can just populate these fields directly into JotForm itself when they're setting up an event. So if we look at a new event, just allow that to come back up. Okay, so if we go in for a new event, then the fields are already there for them. Reminder date, reminder content, populate that, it goes out on those dates. It's that simple. So yep, there we go.
Cool. That's awesome. Because that's like my main concern with setting up these external systems like that is whether the client needs access and whether they have to do anything in them. So yeah, it's great that they can just do pretty much everything on Treepl.
Yep.
Cool. And yeah, I mean, with Zapier, for sure, I mean, I don't think it's feasible to sort of wait around for Treepl to integrate with this and that and every sort of system out there. It's just not going to happen. So,
well, that's the thing. You don't need to necessarily. If you've got Zapier integrated, you've got those other systems. So, you know, it's once your data's there, you can do what you want with it.
Yeah, unless it's like a really specific thing like MailChimp or a
Sure.
e-commerce platform or payment gateway or something. But yeah, I think we definitely need that.
Yeah. So I'd encourage everyone to. I'll put up that link into the chat actually, so that everyone's got it for the voting.
Yeah.
Cool.
Just some questions in the chat too. I'll just start with Barry says he uses FormStack. So Barry, do you find like you can do similar things with there, or have you done similar things on there? Do they have the same sort of features?
Yeah. It's very similar. I think I like the interface a little better on JotForm. Never used those, but what I started using it years ago when we were doing regular HTML sites, and the forms just they stopped working, right? But what I like about both these is you can build some really complex forms that have some logic in them. We built one for company, people applying for a job. And if you're applying for a restaurant, right, if you're applying for a manager job, you see these questions. If you're applying for a dishwasher, you see these questions, right? So it has some major functionality, you know, that make it way more than what was in BC.
Yeah, for sure.
Either of them. This one looks nice too, but Zapier is huge. If more integrations like that will make a big difference.
Yeah, for sure. I think like probably the majority of clients that I've lost in the past have gone to systems where they can integrate with things, whether it's for their social media or selling somewhere else or whatever. So they definitely need that. And Ryan's also asking, if you could share this to the Treehouse site, the code. So yeah, maybe if like there's a way to sort of strip out a lot of the like specifics that you had and just sort of like, this is how it works and this is how you connect it, that would be great.
Sure. And yes, Jack, JotForms is spam proof, yes. So just a comment I saw there.
And Shannon was asking, do you use JavaScript to change the payment amount? If so, does that?
Yeah, we are.
Okay.
Yeah, we've just put a script in there that, so we found a bit of a challenge with the payment amount because the way the client does it is it's a discount that comes into play in terms of whether it's, you know, 1 ticket or 2 or 3. So we've had to write a piece of JavaScript that will alter the price, the per ticket price based on the number of seats being booked. And we've also got the additional fields for the additional attendees as well. So I'm happy to share that code too into Treehouse if you want. It works pretty well.
So how are you setting up the price there? Do you not assign a price for the event? You're just collecting a general payment?
Well, we've got that in the look. It may even be working now, but in the event itself in Treepl, there is the field to put in the payment amount, and you can extend that with discount levels as well. So there is a quantity discount field. But we found when we set it up that the quantity discounts weren't actually corresponding to what was going through the gateway. So even though we'd specify in there that, you know, just for round numbers, it's, you know, $100 for 1 ticket and, you know, $150 total if it's 2 tickets, as an example, we'd find that we'd specify that in the Treepl event, but then when you process it through Stripe, it would take the amount out at 200, just single price times quantity. So we wrote a script that resolves that, and that's what we've been using and still using. I can show you that if you want, but either that or I just share it to you and you can put it into Treehouse, up to you.
Yeah. And the other question.
Look at it. Or?
Sorry.
That's right. Go ahead.
Shannon was just saying, and where does the client go to see the attendees in Treepl or Jot? So I imagine they do it all in Treepl.
In Treepl, so that from the client's perspective, they receive the notification that somebody's made a booking, and then they go into Treepl and get that information from there. They're also collecting it on the form, but the option exists if they want to. They could go and access it on JotForms, which is obviously a good way. But at the moment, they're just going into the subscriber list into Treepl event, where there's the list of subscribers.
Yeah. Oh, all right. So Alex is just saying, do we know how the backlog votes plays to the development decisions? I think Alex from Treeple said that they were going to might be changing that soon. There was a note about that. So yeah, I'm not sure how it plays into that. Obviously, more votes so we can get on something, obviously the better, but yeah, I think we're going to see some changes there, so I'm not sure. Okay, it should be right now.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay. Yeah. I was just wondering, because I noticed that there's a few items that have been hovering around the top of the backlog list as far as votes. They've been right at the top, and they haven't really moved off yet. So there seems like there's some in-demand items there that haven't quite made it into the development cycle. I just wondered if anybody had any insight into what's going on there, or has had a chance to ask Alex directly. No?
Maybe there's a partner meeting coming up next week, is it? So we'll probably talk about it then. But yeah, I think
Sure, yeah.
he's going to announce there's some changes. So.
Okay, yeah, I'll bounce it off him at that time.
Yeah. But I mean, obviously, the level of development that goes into something would play quite a large role, because everyone might want one thing, but if it's going to take them, you know, a month to develop, they've got other priorities. So I don't know. All we can do is vote.
Yeah.
I was talking with Alex about advanced CRM, in our one-on-one meeting, and because it's very essential for us for the some of the heavier lifting sites. And he told me actually that this should be ready in summer, whatever that means, like June, end of June. I think he was talking to one of his developers, checking with him, and there was something like end of June for the advanced CRM, if this is important for anyone. Well, we can ask him like next week again on our like partner meeting, close partner meeting.
Yeah, I definitely think advanced CRM is much needed. And I think it should be, like, if they can just extend CRM as they do Rev over the module, where you can just create custom fields, I mean, that would just be huge. So hopefully they can get that. So Peter, you read there's 6 votes for Zapier now. So do people have spare votes sitting around? I don't. Get on there and vote, guys, if you got spare votes.
Actually, that's a good point, Adam. I think there's a really strong argument to remove the limitation on voting. I think the voting doesn't get a lot of interaction simply because you use your votes up and then that's it. But of course, there's new things coming in there. I don't see the downside in allowing anyone to vote for as many things as they want to. I mean, at the end of the day, it's going to be if it's democracy, well, that's all good. So, I can't see the downside in removing that limitation. Don't know what others think.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, at least expanding it to a few more than 3 votes. I've discussed that with Alex as well, that 3 is pretty limited. I did an audit yesterday of the backlog, and I came up with my top 10, and all of the top 10 were like items that I really, really wanted soon. So,
that's exactly it.
A few more votes, yeah.
You see, I mean, if you could vote for everything you like, it might be 30 votes, whatever. But if those are the 30 things that are important to you, and 10 of those happen to be important to me, and 6 of those correspond with stuff that's important to Adam, and so on, eventually this, the what's popular and what's needed is going to flush to the top of the list. So,
yeah, I tend to agree with that.
Yeah.
It's only one thing I really find essential I think for everyone, and I'm waiting for this for quite some time now, and this is like preview, like draft preview. If your client creates an item in the back end, like a page or a module item, and just wants to look at it, how it looks like in the front end, it's not possible at the moment. And it's so basic in like WordPress, for instance, that most of the clients who do more like admin work, I mean, some don't do this, they let us do it, but some are doing it themselves, and then they always ask me, how do I preview my latest item without like publishing it? And we always have to work around, like make a filter in the module. So we filter at the front end so they can tick a box like, okay, this is like a preview now, and then it's kind of showing only on a special page and stuff like this. We always have to work around. I don't know how you guys see that. It's pretty important, actually.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Tim. When I did my audit, that was one of the top 3 that I picked. So every client that I train, it's always the first question after we get to the end of the training is, when I create something, how do I preview it? So for me, that's a priority.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah, I think so too. And it's hard to work around too, isn't it, Tim? Because, like, yeah, you can create those filters, like you said, and have a checkbox, but that item's actually still there. It's still live. You have to make sure you've filtered it in every single possible place that it can show. So it gets a bit tedious.
Super complicated, actually. And it's like creating a URL. So basically, if he's previewing the item and looking at the detail view, and I just filter it on the list view somewhere on the page where the items are listed, and then filter it there, and he can still look at the detail view, it's creating an URL, and basically it could be indexed and then cause some SEO problems. So it's not ideal.
Yeah.
or he has to exclude it from SEO manually by going into the SEO field. It's just not like, it doesn't look good in training, like Alex said. It's not ideal.
Yeah, it's hard.
Actually, I don't know if you guys have experience with a lot of other systems. Like BC had a pretty decent system. You just hit the preview button and then you see the page. But if it's like a module item or something else, you still come across some complexities with previewing that. So you still need like a custom page that, you know, brings in preview items and stuff like that. I was working on a different CMS. I won't mention it, but they had an interesting system where basically you create a release and then you publish everything to that release, and then there's an entire different staging URL, and you can go and see it as it would be in that context. And then when the date comes, then you can drop all of your updates at once. And it was a pretty interesting system, a little bit complex, but one of the better systems that I've seen out there. I don't know if anybody else has any ideas for like what would be the best kind of implementation of that. I mean, you know, if we want to get into some deeper discussions, I'd bring that back to the forums, but I thought I'd throw that out there.
By the way, what has happened to staging in Treepl? I mean, in one of the earlier roadmaps, I saw this for the Pro Plus plan, like staging and production environment.
Apparently it's moved to version 6, which is off the roadmap, which is not currently visible on the roadmap. That's been about that a couple of times. Yeah, something that I'd love to see as well.
Yeah, I'm not sure where the staging is, but yeah, that's an interesting point, Alex. You could do it that way, where it's the whole staging environment where you're posting things to preview. Obviously, I think that's going to be a lot more complex, but yeah, hopefully they can deliver something to help us there. Just on the votes, though, like people sort of saying more votes, the better. I don't know if I'm just looking at this the wrong way, but like if everyone has 3 votes or everyone has 30 votes, the same things are going to go to the top, really, aren't they? Because like the team can only work on so many things at one time. So the highest voted things are going to be the top things. So I don't see really any difference having 3 votes or 30 votes.
I think the thing that's happening is because you've only got 3 votes, people aren't getting active with voting. You know, it's for a while there, I'd sort of really just ignored it altogether because I couldn't do anything. I couldn't actually, you know, put in a vote. And I don't think there's much. I certainly am not clear on what those limitations are in terms of, is there a time period at which you can then vote again, or how does that work? I don't know. And if you've used up your votes, but then there's new items coming in to vote on, what do? Should you remove votes from something else and then apply it to that? If you can vote, as long as you can't vote twice on the same item, but if you can only vote once on the item, but if you can vote any number of times, then you know, for any number of items, then surely it's going to, you know, the ones that are literally most popular are going to end up at the top of the list, because most people will vote on what they want as opposed to ignoring it, which is, I think, what's been happening.
Yeah. I think the ideal solution for that would be that you get a email notification when your vote becomes free again or something.
Something like that, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But I think if people have, the more votes people have, I think the messier it would get, especially if you can just vote unlimited.
I think there's something going on, because there's about 20 items that have kind of, they sit at the top of the voting list, and then there's 100 items that are kind of random down the bottom of the voting list that I don't think people really go down and check them out. I don't know, maybe that's just me, but it really takes, you know, half an hour to read through the whole list and figure out what you want. So I think if you had a few more, even 10, then we'd see kind of a longer priority queue. And if they're easy to pick off items there, then we see kind of those desirable but not top of the priority list kind of items bubble up just below the highest priority ones. That's my take on it.
Mm.
Yeah. Just checking the chat here. So Ryan's talking about the integrated shipping is critical for him. Yeah, I think definitely, like for e-commerce, you have to work on these integrated shipping for sure.
Mm.
So Lee's saying they have to bargain between their team for who gets the votes. So they have 3 votes between them all. That'd be an interesting office fight there. Yeah, that's right, Captain. I think they're still playing the game of getting on par with what BC had too. So I think those priorities are causing the backlog on all the extra features that we want to see come out, I think. So.
Yeah, I'm finding the same challenge, Catherine. We've got, at this stage, 10% of clients migrated because of waiting for, e-commerce functionality. So, now that's starting to come on tap, so we're getting into that, but it's still early days. So, yeah.
I also think that what the team is doing at the moment, they try to be very sustainable. So they don't put more resources in development than they can actually sustain. It's just my feeling, which I like actually, because I want the platform to be sustainable, financially sustainable. So they do whatever they can. And I think the more sites come over to Treepl, the more the ecosystem is growing, the more like revenue they create, the bigger the team will get, and the more resources are there to develop those things. That's at least my hope, that like at the end of the year, things will speed up a bit in terms of like those needed features. I don't know. That's what I hope, at least.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's why, like we're seeing at the moment, they're doubling down on the performance issue. And so that's holding back the other features that we're waiting for. And that all makes sense. It's understandable. I guess they have to be careful with how many bugs they create. If they rush out features too quick, we're going to see a lot more bugs, and that's going to affect us more. So, Scott from Airfly is saying that like API access to the custom modules. I think if they can open up those things, like API access, Zapier, some of those hopefully quick win things that are going to have really big effects, because that will allow us to work around a lot of those issues. And I think that was the problem with BC too. If they could just open up a few things that would give us that capability to work around all the other limitations while we wait for them to actually become native.
Exactly.
Yeah. Just to ask, like all the other partners, like we've mentioned some features, some basic features like advanced CRM, Zapier integration, and preview functionality. And I would say this sums it up for us, like these 3 features. If we have this, maybe backup, like rollback functionality of 4 features, this would be like as a status of the system where I could say, okay, this is like, I can serve like all my clients, like all the needs I have so far. I'm not very e-commerce heavy, I have to say. I'm pretty sure that in e-commerce, like I was just reading, like shipping options and stuff is also very important if you do e-commerce. But that would be for me, like if I use it as a CMS, like those 4 things. Are there any more things you guys think is like really basic and important to like win clients, or to do certain things with like clients you already have and you want to migrate, or like new clients you want to pitch or something?
I have several member management websites, and so we used custom web apps that accepted payments, right? And then it's a lot like the system we saw where you were registering for these events, but for each of those events, we had to print these other lists. We had to print like a name tag list, a check-in list, like 3 different RSVP kind of lists from the same data. Now, right now in Treepl, you can not do a payment with a custom module. So we had to use the event module. Well, we use the event module with all of the added properties, but I still can't get access to the results. to produce those. And so I would produce those reports, and they would just print them from the system or export them to Excel. So I don't have access to the data yet. I mean, and that's 3 of our biggest sites use that similar functionality.
Yeah, for me, that's like, it's always been a thing, even in BC, it's access to the data. So when we had module data in BC, that was huge, and I think we need that in Treepl. If you can access data anywhere, you can basically do what you need to do.
Right.
So like module data is my number 1 vote on the backlog, always has been. So once you can start filtering data how you want to, with all the conditions and logic, you can work around pretty much anything. And that's not so much like, as Tim was saying, directly what's going to win your client over, because they want features like have their shipping integration or whatever, things like that. But for me as a developer, on the developer side of things, it's access to data. Full stop.
Yeah, I agree with you, Adam. I mean, at the end of the day, I feel like if I can get the data out, I can do anything I need to with it, or I can be really creative and come up with interesting solutions. But if I don't have access, then I'm blocked at that point, right? So that's one of my top votes as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like
This is exactly the reason why I wanted to push the Zapier scenario as a potential short-term solution for that very thing. And as you see with the JotForm solution we've put in for the events, that's a good workaround to get data and do something with it. But it's not a particularly fun one to build. There's a bit of work in it. So if we can access the data, be it externally into Zapier or with module data, ideally, as you say, Adam, and that opens up the world of possibility to anything. I'd say that's probably the biggest thing that we're confronting at the moment as well.
Yeah.
Andy, did you look at sending data like to Zapier from an email workflow or anything like that?
We've got some data going into Zapier, but through JotForm.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Did you ever look at just straight from Treepl straight to Zapier? I feel like I tested that out and it worked.
Okay, that's good. I mean, the stuff we've been doing up till now has required some of the JotForm functionality, which is why we haven't looked at it directly. But yeah, it's something worth exploring. But ideally, if Treepl can integrate Zapier, then that'd just be great.
Agreed.
I think there was something in Zapier, like app where you can trigger a workflow from sending an email to a Gmail account.
Okay,
and
yeah.
I think you need Gmail Business for that.
Mm.
And this way you could just like send a workflow notification from Treepl to that Gmail address and trigger that workflow.
Yeah.
I have a quick question for the Zapier familiar folks. I haven't used it yet. Can you give me an idea? I know there's a lot of variables, and this is kind of a loaded question, but can you give me an idea of what plan most of your clients fall under? Because I see there's several different plans, everything from free to expensive, and I'm just wondering what your average client typically uses.
Most clients that we've set up using something in Zapier have generally been on free plan. Or on the intro plan anyway, because it's the use cases have not been high, but we've never found it to be a problem from a pricing point of view. It's always been free or very little.
Okay, great. I appreciate it, because I haven't used it before, so I didn't know what Zaps are, so I got to familiarize myself with it a bit. But I might just set up a free account just to kind of get in there and play around a bit. Thank you.
I'd recommend it. I mean, Zaps are. It's easy to build. I mean, it's got a great interface. It's intuitive, but we've had some things over the years that have been fairly complex. Where, I mean, it's all about triggers, right? It's something happens and it does something else, and you can run that out into multiple different platforms. So we would have things where an event on a BC site would trigger something in Zapier, which would trigger something into Google Sheets, which would, a response to that would then trigger something else, and it could be quite complex. So yeah, it's a good environment.
Great, thank you. I appreciate the info.
I would say that the biggest factor is if you have conditional logic.
That's
right?
it.
If you're just sending one thing to one spot, to one email, or one thing, then it's that the free one works. But if when you get the data, you're basing a decision off of the data, that's what triggers us into the starter package.
Perfect. Thank you both.
No worries.
And so if we imagine that Treepl opens up a connection with Zapier, obviously Treepl would have to specify what APIs sort of marry across, right? But
yeah, that's right. So it would specify which data points we can actually get access to. Yeah. So yeah, it would. Who knows how far they can go with that, but hopefully all of it, ideally.
Yeah. And so that would then actually mean that Zapier could talk back to Treepl. So you could actually get...
Again, that would depend on how Treepl do it in terms of what access they provide. But sure, I mean, if they have those endpoints accessible both ways, then sure. But that's going to come down to what Treepl decide to do.
I think the easiest integration point is really at the workflow level, right? It would trigger, if something in the system triggers a workflow, then it would workflow as one of the options would be into Zapier instead of, just an email or whatever. You just have to think about that. I mean, that's already kind of built into the infrastructure of Treepl, right? Some trigger-based event.
Good idea.
Yeah, because I've been thinking of the need, just within Treepl, if something happens, then it affects something else within Treepl. So, if someone creates a module item that has something ticked, then we want to create another item or subscribe a contact to something or do something else. So you could use Zapier to internally do something within Treepl as well, which would be really powerful, even if you're not working with other external data sources. So yeah, it could be a really huge thing. All right, moving on. Scott's made a comment here about the additional 6 months with Adobe. What's everyone's thoughts on that? I'm just trying to ignore it, really.
Yeah, I'm ignoring it too. I'm still working on the basis that we've got until March, because working to that deadline means we might actually be able to make it by September. But yeah, it's a challenge no matter when it is, quite frankly. But I think it's probably a good thing at this point, given that we don't have some of the e-commerce functionality. We are a little behind from where we'd like to be.
Yeah, right. And this coronavirus thing is causing a lot of people just to back off on a lot of those decisions. So yeah, it will help, but yeah, it's also annoying. So yeah, there's 7 votes for Zapier now. So yeah, maybe the thing is we just all try and agree on one thing and just everyone dump your votes on one item. And people will have to do it then. All right, guys, is there any other topics anyone wants to discuss or problems anyone's having at the moment want to look at?
I've got one. If it's around galleries, and if anyone's come up with a solution at the moment when a client puts images into a gallery, they've got to put them in one by one. Like they bring them into the file manager in a group, then they've got to put them in the gallery one by one. Has anyone come up with a solution where they can get a gallery to connect to ideally a folder of images, or a way of bulk uploading other than the Excel way, which is too cumbersome for a client? Has anyone come up with a way of being able to bulk put images into a gallery?
Yeah, so on the...
It was a feature of BC, if my memory, I can remember some BC one. There was a BC module that let you do that, but I can't get it to work. And Violetta's telling me it can't be done, but I'm sure it can be.
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, BC had that option. You just choose the folder and it looks at all the images in the folder. So you can't natively do that in Treepl, but like with a module, but there is an API, a liquid API that you can retrieve all the files from within a folder. So on the Treehouse code page, I'm pretty sure I put that up there. There's a little code snippet where you can look at that. I'll just try and get the link.
That'd be great.
I'll just post it in the chat now. So it pretty much does exactly what you're. But the catch with that is that you need, I think it's the Pro plan or higher, because that API is only with the Pro plan. So
yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Are you sure about that, Adam? I just looked on the grid there to see if that feature was on, but I can't tell which plan it's in. But I remember it was brought down to the business plan. Is my memory not serving me?
Yeah, it could have been. I can't quite remember. So yeah.
I have the sense that it was. But.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Aaron's works on the business plan. So cool. Awesome.
There's one little annoying thing which is happening once in a while. I wanted to hear if there's anybody else having this. Read about it in Slack once in a while. I think other people have that too. But it's a filtering issue with module items. Whenever you have like categorized module items and you output them on the front end, I have it once in a while that an item just disappears. It should be like outputted on the front end because the category is right and it's enabled, but just not showing up. I go into the admin, I go into the item, I do something like change, maybe not even change something, like just save it again or disable it and enable it again, and it shows up on the front end. Like really weird. I had this like yesterday, like a slider which only shows like pictures from one category, and it would all of a sudden only show one picture, although there are two pictures in this category. Anybody else?
Tim, I've been having issues like this quite often. Actually, it definitely happens on the import of files. So if you do a fresh import with item tags, or actually even happened for a custom property I needed for a search, and it was like 80 items. It usually takes a day for the database to sort of reindex, even by clicking the module indexing and rebuild site index. And if it doesn't have to happen after a day, I have to contact Treepl, and then they do something in the background and it works. So it seems to happen on import more often, but even when I was creating like a simple search, I added a custom field. I added another custom field just to test it, just by manually adding, and it still didn't pick up the indexing. So it seems to be some sort of database indexing issue. And that's happening on a pro plan and also a business plan as well.
In our case, it was really like no import, and the module only carries like 4 items or so and 2 categories, and we all manually inputted them. Very simple structure.
It happened to me with a custom search form, and I think that I posted it to the forum, and they were like, "It works fine," right? But I think it was a day later, and it just started working.
Yeah, I've definitely seen issues like that as well. It's something to do with the index, the search index, and also dates. I think dates were being mixed up. But was this recent, Tim, or was it a while ago?
Yesterday, I published a page on Sunday, and it's a bit of a complicated page because it's like one client but 2 departments, and they have both sliders, and it's basically one slider module, and 2 slides are shown in one part of the page and 2 other slides are shown on the other part of the page. And all of a sudden, one part of the page would only show 1 slide, although it used to be okay when I launched the page like a day before. So it was easy to repair, but it's just these things, and that's also a concern I have, like, sometimes you have to go on old pages, not old pages, but pages you've finished, you've published, you've like handed over to the client, and you look at them, and some stuff wouldn't work as like configured when I launched them. Client mostly wouldn't have noticed, because then they would have called me. But then I check again, like, and click something, enable, disable, and it's up there again. Like, it's not really often, but it happens enough to just have this kind of feeling, yeah, there's something off here, there's something with index, or I don't know, I'm not sure. That's a bit, it hasn't happened with really heavy lifting pages so far, but I would like to have this addressed before I do any kind of heavy lifting page where this becomes an issue, that something is not showing up in output, which should be there in output. And if it's not showing up, it has consequences for the client, something like this. I mean, a slider is not really important, but I would like to go into that,
I've come across that as well. It was a few weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. I had one where a client was editing a module, and then for some reason all of the items disappeared out of that category. And another one of our team members internally was editing a team module, and for some reason the C-suite of the company just disappeared off the team page, and we actually had to build a new module to get it working on the same day. No reason, and then got a hold of Treepl, went in, they fixed something, and started working again. So I've experienced that for sure as well, and not even import-export stuff, or just a module I created a month ago. Somebody went in, made an edit, and then that item disappeared, and then on refresh 2 items disappeared, and then on refresh an hour later, then every item was missing from the category, and then support tickets. So I've been seeing that a bit too.
I have a kind of the hope that this is going to be better when they finish the performance updates, because Alex was telling me that they also they had no time to go over the system and brush it up, because they were developing so fast, like e-commerce and everything. So I'm kind of hoping that this is just going away with the next update. And that they're aware of it, that they're aware of these. The most important thing I would say is that they actually are aware that things like this happen, so they can investigate that and find a solution, which doesn't make it necessary that we call in support and say something, because they can fix it. If you call them or if you email them on Slack or something, they fix stuff immediately. But I would like to have it that it doesn't have to be fixed.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, I when we had our one-on-one with Alex, I mentioned it specifically to him that was a fundamental reliability concern that I had. I just wanted to see go away. Totally agree with your sentiment.
Yeah, I think there are some issues with the indexing, which are addressed a few times, but hopefully they can nail that down. I just saw a comment from Hope back in regards to the image gallery with using the API, Lynn. She's just saying that the other catch is that you can't add image captions, text captions to an image where you could in BC. My only workaround to that is to actually have the client name the image, like the actual file name, as what they want the caption to be, and then you can pull the file name out as the caption. But that's not usually ideal, but that's the only real workaround I could see with that.
Yeah, that's not an issue with this particular one that I'm working on, but I'll have a look at that as well. Thanks for that information.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thanks everyone for coming. I think we'll probably end it there, unless anyone wants to chat about anything. I'll stop the recording anyway. And
I just wanted to quickly say I hope that everyone's socially distancing and everyone's safe and that no one's wearing pants.
Don't know about that last bit, but yeah.